Welcome back. And now for the news in detail. US President Donald Trump says trade agreements with different countries represent a new model for the 21st century. Speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Trump said the US has reached a trade deal with Japan and is looking for a new one with the UK.
Thousands of miles from his impeachment trial in the United States, President Donald Trump took center stage at Davos to tout the success of the country's economy. He said the time for skepticism in the U.S. economy is over.
Today, I'm proud to declare that the United States is in the midst of an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen before. We've regained our stride, rediscovered our spirit, and reawakened the powerful machinery of American enterprise.
Trump said he has a good relations with Chinese President Xi Jinping. He added negotiations over the second phase of the trade deal with China will start soon.
Our relationship with China right now has probably never been better. We went through a very rough patch, but it's never, ever been better. My relationship with President Xi is an extraordinary one. He's for China, I'm for the U.S., but other than that, we love each other.
The four-day annual gathering is being held in the shadow of the fourth industrial revolution and its massive transformation of the global economy. The summit will host 150 sessions that will be open to public attendance.
For more on the Davos Summit, we are joined by Professor Steve Keen, an economic expert based in Amsterdam. Thank you very much, Mr. Keen, for your time. It seems that the US-Iran conflict and the climate change are going to dominate this year's Davos gathering. What other issues are going to dominate, according to you, the four-day gathering?
I think those are basically the two. But climate change has become very much more obvious. Even to people who are deniers, or even them changing their tune. That has to be a major focus. And then I think the trouble's been caused by America's militarization of the dollar is another one. That can't be discussed openly, but I hope there's a fair bit of discussion about the need to build an alternative global payment system.
Mr. Keen, a report yesterday suggested that the richest 1% now owns as much wealth as the poorest, more than 90% around the world. What can the Davos gathering do, if anything, about it to ensure that this doesn't damage the world economy?
Well, they've actually helped reach that situation. They are, of course, not just the 1%, they're the 0.01% going to Davos, and they benefit from this inequality. So I think anything they do or talk about doing for it will be lip service rather than effectual change. We have had a period of inequality caused by the private debt bubble that caused the financial crisis. That's been followed by central banks exacerbating inequality by driving up share prices through QE, which of course only benefits those who own shares, which again are the wealthy. So everything has been about maintaining the financial system, the financial sector, and that maintains the wealth of the ultra wealthy. I don't think there's anything coming out of Davos which is likely to reverse that.
Mr. Keen, with the tide of populist leaders who have rallied against globalization now in power around the world, can we really expect anything positive to come out of Davos now and in the near future?
Globalization has had all sorts of manifestations, one of the main ones being relocating production to third world countries within the same company and then exporting the goods back for sale in the wealthy countries, which of course undermines the workers who used to work in those factories which got shut down. And what it also involves is an enormous amount of international shipping. Now, that is all unwinding for two reasons. The poor in the West have had enough. Their wages have been cut so badly that they now are demonstrating, as we're seeing in France against Macron and the election of Trump himself. All this populism is by people who've been disenfranchised in the OECD. And when globalization is so dependent upon transportation, and we have the shipping ships are absolutely not set up to reduce carbon emission levels, I think we're going to find globalization going into reverse, and that will be regardless of what the Davos people want, whose wealth has actually come out of that globalization, as you say.
Thank you very much, Professor Steve Keen, an economic expert based in Amsterdam, for joining in this news. Professor Steve Keen, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate that. Now, moving on, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei says Iranians' resistance and refusal to submit to America's bullying angers Washington. He said the world is fascinated by Iran's resolve and it should be used to spread the truth about Islam and the Iranian nation. Speaking to an event, he said the U.S. actually wants Iran to abandon its new message for the world when it asks Tehran to behave normally. The new chief of Iran's Quds Force has promised manly revenge for the U.S. killing of Major General Qasem Soleimani. At an event, Brigadier General Ismail Qani said the U.S. killed Soleimani in a cowardly way in Iraq. Meanwhile, Iran's Civil Aviation Authority has confirmed 2 missiles were fired at a Ukrainian airliner shot down earlier this month. The Ukraine International Airlines plane was destroyed shortly after takeoff in Tehran, killing all 176 people on board. In a statement, the aviation authorities said investigators discovered 2 Tor M1 missiles were fired at the aircraft. The Tor M1 is a short-range surface-to-air missile developed in the former Soviet Union and designed to target aircraft or cruise missiles. Responding to the U.S. accusations that Iran is violating UN standards, Russia says the statements are no more than myth-making and fact-twisting. The U.S. Special Representative for Iran, Brian Hook, had said UN standards prohibit Iran from nuclear enrichment. In a statement, the Russian Foreign Ministry said Hook's comments accused the UN Security Council of passing resolutions counter to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. The ministry said the treaty grants all the signatory nations an equal right to peaceful use of nuclear energy. It said Russia rejects the attempts to present the U.S. national approach and requirements as an international standard. In Syria, Russian airstrikes killed at least 12 people, including 7 children in northern Syria. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said 2 of the victims were killed in Idlib, while the other 10 died in Aleppo. Russian backs Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, whose forces have been fighting rebels in Idlib since 2015. Last week, Russia and Turkey broke the ceasefire deal to end the fighting in Idlib, but it could not take hold. 3 rockets have hit Baghdad's Green Zone, home to government buildings and the foreign missions. No injuries or casualties have been reported so far. Police say the rockets, 2 of which landed near the U.S. Embassy, were launched from the Zafariya district outside Baghdad. A U.S. military spokesman in the city said they heard the blasts at the military and embassy compound areas. The U.S. blames Iranian-backed paramilitary groups for a spate of similar attacks on the Green Zone in recent months. Tehran has not claimed the responsibility. Moving on, the Taliban say peace talks with the U.S. in Qatar's capital Doha will continue today. Both the sides are engaged in a fresh round of talks to end the 19-year war and allow the U.S. forces to leave Afghanistan. The group's spokesperson, Sohail Shaheen, said U.S. Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad and General Scott Miller are representing Washington. Shaheen said Taliban leaders Mullah Baradar, Abbas Tanakzai and Maulvi Amir Khan are negotiating with the U.S. representatives. He said both the sides are expected to hold a joint meeting in Doha today to discuss further steps regarding the peace deal. Moving on to Indian-occupied Kashmir, where the occupation forces have martyred 2 more Kashmiris in the Pulwama district. The civilians were targeted during a cordon and search operation. The Indian paramilitary forces in the district's Avantipura area. The occupation forces have martyred 12 civilians in January so far, while 5 have been targeted over the past 24 hours. India's lockdown and communications blackout of the occupied valley have entered their 170th day. Enraged by accusations of being paid actors, women protesters in India's capital New Delhi have sent a defamation notice to the ruling party. The Bharatiya Janata Party's IT cell earlier claimed anti-citizenship law demonstrators are taking 500 rupees per day to attend the Shaheen Bagh sit-in. In the notice, protesters said the head of the BJP's IT cell, Amit Malviya, has a vested interest in defaming demonstrators. They said, though his allegations, Malviya has not only misled the public, but also brought disrepute to the protesters. Meanwhile, Indian police have arrested 16 women for protesting against the controversial Citizenship Act. The Indian government has been facing countrywide protests against the new law for over a month, with 27 people dying in the unrest. The Myanmar-appointed panel has claimed no genocide was conducted against Rohingya Muslims in 2017. Almost 750,000 Rohingya fled Myanmar's Rakhine state to Bangladesh after thousands were massacred by the army. The government set up what it called the Independent Commission of Inquiry that concluded certain members of its army committed war crimes, but not genocide. In a report, the Commission said there is insufficient evidence showing the crimes committed were intended to eradicate a national, ethnic or religious group. Burmese Rohingya organization UK has rejected the report, saying it is a blatant PR exercise to divert attention from the ruling of the International Court of Justice. The report is released ahead of ICJ's ruling tomorrow on whether to impose urgent measures to stop the alleged ongoing genocide in Myanmar. The World Health Organization has convened a meeting to discuss the recent outbreak of coronavirus in China. The agency will meet on Wednesday to decide whether to declare the outbreak a public health emergency of international concern. In a statement, the WHO said its Director General, Tedros Ghebreyesus, will lead the meeting. The new mystery virus has spread rapidly in China, killing 4 people and infecting over 300 others in just 3 days. There is currently no vaccine for the virus. The infection was first identified in December by Chinese health officials in Wuhan. South Korea says it will send troops to the Strait of Hormuz, with its anti-piracy unit now covering a larger area to help protect the waterway. Washington had asked Seoul and other allies to join a naval coalition to secure the strait amid tensions with Tehran. A statement from the Korean Defense Ministry said the force will not join a US-led coalition, but will conduct its operations independently. It said the government has decided to temporarily expand the Cheongae unit's sphere of activity. The ministry said the step has been taken to guarantee the safety of its people and freedom of navigation for shipping. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Welcome back. The UK government's Brexit bill has been defeated in the House of Lords. The upper chamber of the Parliament voted in favour of a move to give EU nationals an automatic right to live in the UK after Brexit. Earlier this month, the Brexit bill was presented in the upper house after being passed by the House of Commons without amendment. Prime Minister Boris Johnson enjoys a commanding majority in the lower house after his recent election victory. However, Conservatives do not have a majority in the upper house. Any changes to the bill made by the Lords have to go back to the Commons to be approved and could still be overturned. The United States has promised more action to support Venezuela's opposition leader, Juan Guaido. During a regional anti-terrorism summit in Bogota, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Venezuela has become a failed state under President Nicolas Maduro. Pompeo also praised Colombia's President Ivan Duque for supporting Venezuelans who reject authoritarianism and demand freedom. Guaido defied a travel ban to travel to Colombia and plans to visit Brussels and then Davos to attend the World Economic Forum. Meanwhile, President Maduro has accused Washington of waging psychological warfare on Venezuela.
Mike Pompeo declares that he's ready now, so you can see what Mike Pompeo's mind is. He's a phony who deceives himself, cheats, who lives from psychological warfare, who lives from falsehood, from lies.
In Chad, the French defense minister has met with her Chadian counterpart in the capital city of N'Djamena to discuss the formation of a new Sahel military coalition. French defense minister Florence Parly is on 2-day visit to Sahel region. Chad's defense minister Mehmet Abali Salah said they talked of the technicalities for Chadian troops to operate outside their border. After the meeting, Parly said Chad's President Idriss Déby is committed to sending a battalion to the 3 border regions.
Indeed, this international coalition is a turning point because it will focus its efforts on the most critical area at the moment in the fight against terrorism. which is the three-border region, with the new joint command that will bring together Operation Barkhane's command, G5 Sahel's command, and the leadership of the Sahelian armies.
In Tunisia, President Kais Saied has named Ilyas Fakhfakh as the country's new prime minister. He now has a month to form a coalition and win a confidence vote in the parliament by a simple majority. There will be another election with urgent economic decisions hanging over the country if he fails. Earlier this month, the parliament rejected ex-Prime Minister Habib Jamli's proposed government in a confidence vote. Jamli was nominated by the Ennahda party, which won last October's polls, but not a parliamentary majority. Tunisia has been in a state of turmoil since dictator Zainal Abidine bin Ali's regime was overthrown in 2011. 10 people have died in Ethiopia after a wooden seating area collapsed during a major Orthodox Christian celebration. Health officials say over 100 people were injured by the accident in the historic city of Gondar. The casualties happened as spectators' stands suddenly gave way at Fasilides Bath. Hundreds had been sitting on a tiered wooden structure for hours when it collapsed. Officials warned the death toll could rise because an unknown number of people were crushed. Millions of people gathered in Gondar for the Epiphany festivities known as Timkat. 9 people have been killed by a suicide bomber in the western Chad village of Kaiga Kindirija. The military says 2 others were wounded when a woman blew herself up. Officials said the Boko Haram militants group is behind the deadly attack. Chad is one of the countries struggling with Boko Haram attacks that have spilled over from Nigeria's decade-long violence. Many of the group's fighters are believed to have sought refuge in the Lake Chad region, launching attacks into Nigeria, Chad, Cameroon and Niger. 11 people have been killed in a fire in Russia's southwestern Siberian region. The emergency ministry says 10 of the victims were Uzbek nationals. The blaze gutted a one-story wooden house in the village of Pichulmusky in the Tomsk region, causing the roof to collapse. The ministry said the house was completely engulfed in flames when firefighters arrived at the scene. 2 people escaped on their own and were given medical assistance. Authorities say the fire is believed to have been started by an electrical short-circuiting. Stock markets across Europe are trading lower after IMF further slashed global growth predictions. CAC 40 in Paris is trading over 1% lower. London's FTSE 100 has lost nearly 1% as Burberry stocks slipped nearly 4%. Frankfurt's DAX has lost over 0.5% despite Hugo Boss shares gained 3.5%. In Asia, Hong Kong's Hang Seng led the losses, closing nearly 3% lower after ratings agency Moody's slashed its rating for the city. The Shanghai Composite, Seoul's Kospi and Nikkei 225 lost ground. Meanwhile, international oil prices have lost 1% after supply risks fade. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.news.